Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Sasuke sat in the class, her short black hair resting behind her going down to her neck. She never really understood the girls in her shinobi class, they behaved more like civilian teenage girls than kunoichi trainees. She watched as two female students in particular were arguing over the literally anything. One was a girl by the name of Sakura Haruno. She had long pink hair that extended past her shoulders but didn't quite reach her mid-back. Sasuke could say that she was pretty, she had a feminine charm to her that just poured out innocence and lovability externally, but Sasuke wasn't fooled by the exterior charm. She had heard the young girl bashing one of their classmates mercilessly before. She was born of the civilian populace, both of her parents weren't shinobi, so their only daughter becoming one was an impressive feat for their family. The girl was smart, having scored fourth in their class and second amongst the girls, behind her of course. Sasuke wouldn't put it past the former civilian to have attended the Konoha Shinobi Academy just to find a husband amongst one of the clans of Konoha, practically securing their daughter's future. Sasuke sighed. If only their daughter was an actual shinobi at heart though, and not arguing with another kunoichi over boys. No, I say Kiba-kun is the most handsome boy in our class, a blonde-haired kunoichi said. That girl was Ino Yamanaka, the ringleader of the popular girls. Ino, unlike Sakura, came from a prominent clan in Konoha, the Yamanaka clan. They were well known as being part of the dynamic trio of the Yamanaka, Akamichi and Nara clans. They were a powerhouse team that had plenty of stellar shinobi rise through their ranks. So why was the daughter of such a prestigious clan so girly? I don't think so, Ino-chan. I know it may sound like a joke, but if we are judging on pure looks, I'd have to vote Naruto or Sasuke-kun. This made Sasuke raise an eyebrow. So, she admits it. Sasuke was well aware that her classmates were under the impression that she may be a boy. That was okay with her. The first 3 years of the Shinobi Academy it bothered her a bit, and she considered changing her style to show everyone that she was indeed a girl. But her mother said that her current clothes suited her, and she liked the compliment enough to never really change. Now she continued to wear the clothes simply because she found it comfortable. Otherwise, she really didn't care that her gender identity seemed to be a hot topic around school. If it wasn't preparing her to face off with her brother, she couldn't spare time on it. She trained harder than anyone else within their class, both genders, and she was at the top of the class because of it. It annoyed her still that these two kunoichi candidates seemed to misunderstand why they were here in the first place. Although Sasuke couldn't quite understand if the annoyance she felt was due to them being too girly in a job where lives are at stake or if it was something else. Naruto Uzumaki, the dead last of their class, he wasn't present, of course, probably because he, along with 3 other students, all civilian born, had failed the shinobi exam yesterday. Seeing as though they were the only 4 not to return to the classroom with their headbands with the Konoha emblem on it after the exam. Sasuke would agree with Sakura on this one, although the girl would never state it out loud. The dead last was to her by far the most handsome boy in class, even though he was a brain-dead idiot. He was a looker. His bright blonde hair fit his face and deep blue expressive eyes perfectly. The boy was shorter than she preferred, but he made up with that with a good personality, and a charm that even she recognized if you listened to him. Naruto had a way of speaking with such a conviction that caused her to believe him, even when he said ridiculous things like how he wished to become Hokage. Although she knows a lot of Naruto's personality is an act, he often doesn't feel the way he acts. His eyes are what given him away. He is a troublemaker. The only time she's seen any type of talent from the boy was his ability to run and hide from the Konoha shinobi chasing him after one of his pranks. Otherwise, the boy showed no real shinobi potential, and Sasuke was glad he failed. A kid like him didn't belong in the world of shinobi. If he had to face off against real shinobi like her brother, Naruto would be as good as dead. No way. Are you serious? You think that Naruto is? Huh, what do you want, Ino-chan? Sasuke was too busy in her thoughts about the blonde to have noticed his entrance to the classroom. He wore his usually orange jumpsuit that was an eyesore for every shinobi. It practically screamed, "I'm over here me." What caught Sasuke interest though was the Konoha shinobi headband wrapped around the boy's head. But he failed yesterday. So why is he here? Taking the question right out of her thoughts, Ino spoke. Naruto, why are you here? This place is for graduates only. We are getting our Jonin sensei today and you failed yesterday. Naruto looked at her with a smug face pointing at the headband on his forehead. Are you blind, Ino-chan? I passed. That's why I have this headband and that's why I am here. Believe it. Ino just shook her head in confusion. But how you're the dead last in our class? Just 2 days ago you couldn't even form a single clone, so there is no way you should have passed the exam. Well, believe it or not, Ino-chan, I did, and I'm here so it. At this, Ino face turned bright red in anger and embarrassment, and Sasuke had to cover her face as to not give away the smirk on her face. Most of the time the Uchiha found that everyone around her was annoying and a waste of space. She felt that way about the blonde too, but she could recognize he had some redeeming qualities. Naruto was an interesting character to her. He edited pretty much everything, but he never seemed to quit or give up and look sorry for himself. Like her, he was all alone, so she felt a kinship towards him. The only person who could even remotely understand her would be Naruto. Not that she was looking for refuge with him or that it would lead to something. She just felt she understood his pain, a pain that she herself felt every day. The pain of loneliness and the isolation that comes with it. Naruto reeked of it, as she was sure she did. No one to rely on but yourself. Their living situation wasn't for the meek. What gave Naruto away other than his bluntness was his eyes. When she looked in them at times, she saw a reflection of herself. The pain and loneliness within the deep blue waves were enough to send chills down her spine. At the beginning of their final year at the Shinobi Academy, her brother Itachi Uchiha had slaughtered her entire clan, once known as the Great Protectors of the Leaf. The Uchiha clan now consisted of her and her criminal brother. At the thought of her clan, the smile that formed because of Naruto vanished and she felt herself slip into a dark place. As she thought about all the different she wanted to her brother. She was too deep in her thoughts to notice Naruto take his seat next to her. Hey Sasuke, Naruto said, looking at her with expecting eyes. His voice shook her out of her thoughts. She turned to him and felt her heartbeat increase just a little. His eyes were looking deep into hers and held such a light in them it made her feel as though he was able to see through her darkness, through her, and it was uncomfortable. Choosing to ignore him, she just huffed and turned away, covering her mouth in hopes to hide the slight blush that would rise to her cheeks. She hated the way her body and heart reacted to Naruto. He gave her butterflies and made her nervous, and she had no idea why. Naruto couldn't force her to do anything. Naruto couldn't hurt her because he was weak. Naruto couldn't deceive her because he wasn't naturally deceptive. He was so openly honest and direct it was hard to imagine him at times even being a shinobi. Plus, he had such idealist views. He was basically a child. Yet knowing all the ways she could rule over him, she struggled to have conversation with the boy. It was his eyes. He always saw her for who she was. She couldn't hide from them. Naruto, at seeing Sasuke ignoring him, sighed and leaned back in his chair. She hated this feeling she got around him. She didn't know why, but it was as if her entire being was attracted to the 15-year-old boy. She often found her eyes wandering to him when there was nothing more entertaining to look at. Naruto had been sitting by her since the first day of school. Probably because she was the first person to speak to him in their class. He was constantly bullied by everyone else. His only safe place in class was next to her. Not that she didn't throw jabs and make fun of him. How could she resist? He was an easy target. She just didn't make it her daily mission to make the blonde's life hell. It's not as if some of the bullying was unwarranted. Naruto was a well-known prankster. Just yesterday, he painted the Hokage monument. So, she couldn't always find a reason to defend his actions, but she didn't go out of her way like Ino to pick on the boy. She had more important things to worry about, such as getting stronger so she and her brother then revive her clan. Naruto just wasn't worth the waste of time to her. No matter how expressive his eyes were or how handsome he is. He was useless to her if he wasn't making her stronger to Itachi. He was useless to her if he wasn't strong enough to help her revive her clan. Even though she thought he was attractive, she couldn't afford to procreate for love. Her brother took that option away from her. She needed a strong partner able to make sure that her clan's bloodline wouldn't end with her. Sasuke wasn't stupid either. She understood that in order to revive her clan she would need to get married and have kids, but that was step 2. Step 1 was to Itachi, so that was her focus and that was where her head needed to be. Anything else was a distraction that she couldn't afford. If only. You need more hate. Why'd them to test my potential? I wanted to see how far I could rise, and that is why I will leave you alive, so one day I will you, or you will me. But you can't do that with your soft heart. You will need hate in order to defeat me. You will need these eyes. The memory of her brother's words brought chills to her spine. She clenched her fist hard as she tried to refocus on the real world around her. She often found that sleep was hard to come by since being stuck watching her clan slaughtered over and over again, she had nightmares that were unceasing. Naruto watched as Sasuke ignored his greeting. He sighed sadly. Before her clan was destroyed, she used to talk to him. He would have even considered her a friend, his only friend his age. After her clan was, though she barely spoke to anyone, I guess he should consider himself lucky that she spoke to him from time to time, like once or twice a week, which was more than he noticed her talking to anyone else. He was outright bullied by almost everyone in the class, besides Sasuke, Hinata, Choji, Shino, and Shikamaru. Everyone else flat out treated him like the civilians of Konoha, like absolute trash. Only yesterday did he figure out it was because of the nine-tails fox spurt inside of him. He was still struggling with the knowledge of that fact. At least now he understood that they didn't hate him for being him, but for what held inside. He had failed the shinobi exams yesterday and was sitting on the swings watching as all his classmates seemed to be getting praised by their parents for becoming shinobi when Mizuki-sensei came up to him with an extra credit assignment that would allow him to pass if he completed the mission. He should have known it was a trick, being a trickster himself, but he wanted to believe he had a chance after failing so many times before. So, when he snuck into the Hokage's tower and stole the forbidden scroll, even learning the shadow clone jutsu within the scroll, he was hopefully that he completed the mission and would pass. Turns out it was all a trick by Mizuki. Mizuki was using him to get the scroll to hurt the village, but thanks to him and Iruka-sensei they managed to defeat Mizuki and save the day. The third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi had rewarded his completion of an A-ranked assignment by allowing him to become a shinobi, and that is why he was here today. It's not like if he told Ino-chan that she would believe him anyway though. Maybe Sasuke would believe him. He was sure that the boy would at least listen to him. Sasuke used to be at least receptive to Naruto. Naruto always thought his voice was sort of feminine, but who was he to judge? He had a demon within him. He'd take a girly voice to being a Jinchuriki any day. Naruto was sure even if Sasuke had a girly voice, he was still a boy. It's not like it was just him though. Everyone in the class was 50-50 on if the last Uchiha was a girl or boy. Naruto looked to his left where Sasuke sat observing the boy. He wore his usual clothes, a blue shirt with the Uchiha clan symbol on the back. His arms were slender, but so was Naruto's, so that didn't mean anything. On each of his arms Sasuke wore a half sleeve that came up to his elbows. He wore white shorts that reached his mid-thigh, with blue sandals and white leg sleeves that stopped just short of his knee. Everything about his appearance screamed boy, which was the argument for half of the class, mainly the girls, all except Shikamaru and Kiba. Shikamaru, when asked his opinion about Sasuke by Ino, always replied that he didn't care, and it was too troublesome to worry about, but the answer was obvious. Kiba was the firmest in his belief that Sasuke was indeed a girl because of his noise. But that wasn't enough to convince the rest of the class. The rest of them viewed him as a musclehead just barely smarter than Naruto. It seemed that to the girls Sasuke was a cool, unbothered boy with gorgeous face that they loved. To the guys Sasuke was a beautiful tomboy. Sasuke himself didn't even bother to correct anyone on how they addressed him, nor rarely even responded when they attempted conversation. To Naruto, Sasuke was definitely a boy. He didn't bother anyone nor spare a second glance at anyone in the class. That seemed enough to convince the blonde that the last Uchiha was indeed a boy, because that is a boy behavior, right? The only thing that made Naruto slightly hesitant to be 100% sure was Sasuke's face and hair. Sasuke's face was too perfect. His skin never once showed a sign of blemish. It was as white and smooth as pure marble and did have a girl-like look to it. Same as his hair. The Uchiha's hair was wild at the back. He always wore it in a ponytail, only today it had been cut to be a short mane around the Uchiha, but it was still so untamed and shot out in different directions. Naruto looked at the other girls in class. If Sasuke was a girl, then she kept up with her hair the worse. Every other girl from their class hair was always neat and not sticking out in random places like a boy. The only boy in their class with long hair that was neat like a girl was Neji, but Neji was a Hyuga and practically walked with a stick up their butt. Apparently, Naruto was staring too long at Sasuke because he turned to him. "What are you looking at, idiot?" the boy asked him aggressively. "Yep. Definitely a boy." "Nothing," Naruto said quickly before turning to face forward as to not spark the wrath of the quiet Uchiha. Sasuke just huffed in response, turning away from the blonde so that he didn't see the ever so slight blush on her face. She couldn't understand why just talking to him made her feel excited. Iruka chose that moment to enter the classroom. He still had bandages from wounds inflicted while fighting Mizuki with Naruto yesterday. "Alright class, since everyone is here, I'd like to be the first to congratulate you all on passing the shinobi exam and becoming shinobi of the village hidden in the leaves." Iruka clapped his hands applauding his students. He was cut off by Kiba, who shouted, "Sensei, it seems we have a spy amongst us. Naruto is here," Kiba said, pointing his finger towards Naruto. Said boy just looked into his lap, not acknowledging the accusation. Naruto did indeed pass yesterday and is an official shinobi of Konoha just like Kiba, Iruka said, silencing the boy's protest. The entire class but a few gasped at this and looked towards the boy. Okay, to continue on, as you all know, shinobi squads consist of 4 members. It will be no different for your genin teams. Listen out for your names to be called. I will tell you your teammates and who your Jonin sensei will be. Do remember that now these people lives will be in your hands as your life will be in theirs. When I call your teams, name, wait in the classroom for the arrival of your Jonin sensei, then you are released to their care. Iruka paused before continuing. Starting with Team 11, Team Guy will consist of Rock Lee, Neji Hyuga and Tenten. Your team leader will be Might Guy. Dynamic entry. Iruka watched in horror as one of his classroom mirrors burst open and Might Guy came flying through it, hitting his signature pose. "I am the handsome blue beast of the leaf, Might Guy. You may call me Guy Sensei, or Master Sensei, or the handsome Guy Sensei, or..." "Excuse me, Guy-kun," Iruka said with annoyed look and a tick mark on his forehead. "Yes, my Chunin comrade," Guy said, turning and flashing the academy instructor with a smile. "Can you please take your introductions elsewhere?" At this, Guy visible sagged his shoulders in sadness. "But I had practiced that introduction a million times." Nodding his head, Guy lead his new genin students out of the academy classroom. "Alright, let's continue. Where were we? Right, Team 10 will be Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi, and Ino Yamanaka. Your team sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi." Ino shouted in protest. "Why do I have to be stuck with the lazy bum, and Mr. Snackalot? Why couldn't I be on the same team as Kiba-kun or Sasuke-kun?" Asuma walked in the classroom in time to hear his student's complaint, sighing as he inhaled his cigarette before ashing it on Iruka's desk. Much to the Chunin displeasure, spoke, "Because this is what the Hokage has ordered. Are you telling your Jonin sensei that you are above the Hokage's orders?" Asuma asked with a cold glare. Ino straightened up before replying, "Oh, of course not, sensei." "Good, now you 3 follow me," Asuma said, leading his new team out of the class. Iruka got a napkin and wiped off the ashes that Asuma left on his desk, before continuing where he left off. Next is Team 8, which will be Kiba Inuzuka, Hinata Hyuga, and Shino Aburame, your team leader will be Kurenai Yuhi. Kiba piped up at this. Cool, we get a kunoichi as a sensei. I hope she is hot. Hinata meanwhile was staring at Naruto, sad that she wasn't going to be on the same team as him. Shino remained quiet. Kiba, do not disrespect your sensei. All sensei are high-level jonin handpicked by the Hokage, show some respect. Aha, don't worry about it, Iruka-sensei, Kiba said, leaning back in his seat with his hands behind his head. There can only be one alpha in a pack and everyone knows that is always a male, so Kiba was cut off by a kunai to his throat. He looked up to see a beautiful woman with red eyes staring down at him with a villainous smile. Hello Kiba-kun, I am your alpha and jonin instructor Kurenai Yuhi. Do you really want to finish your sentence? Kiba was now shaking in his chair. He hadn't sensed her at all, nor could he smell her. It was as if she wasn't even a real person. It was like he was staring at a ghost, but the kunai against his neck felt so real. Kiba felt a hand put on his shoulder before he heard Shino say, "Release." Kiba in a cold sweat looked around. He was still in the classroom, but Shino was standing next to him now. But Kiba sat in the middle of the class and the Aburame sat at the back. He looked behind him for the crazy lady that had a kunai to his throat, but she wasn't there. He turned to the front of the class to see the same lady leaning on Iruka-sensei's desk with her hands crossed and a knowing smirk on her face. What just happened? Kiba asked. No one in particular. Shino spoke. You were caught in a genjutsu. You went from speaking to shivering and whimpering like a puppy. That was the only indication you gave, which led me to believe you had been caught in a genjutsu. Shino said plainly. Kiba faced paled as he looked at his jonin instructor, fear in his eyes. Are you okay, Kiba-kun? Was there something important you needed to say? Something that had to do with being an alpha? Kurenai asked teasingly. Kiba quickly shook his head. Okay, great. Team 8, follow me, Kurenai said, leading her new team out of the classroom. The last three students looked at each other, all three thinking the same thing. So, this is my team. Iruka shaking his head at the actions of his students, and their sensei spoke, as you three probably figured out, you're the last team. Team 7. You should be honored to have that team number. A lot of notable shinobi have carried that team number before. Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Uzumaki. You all will be Team 7 and your jonin sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. The three students looked around expectantly. The other team's jonin had some badass entrances and had shown up immediately after their names was called. So, the three former academy students, now genin, were expecting their sensei to do the same. Even Iruka was optimistic that the rumored always late Kakashi would show up on time for an important event such as this. 5 minutes turned into 30 minutes, at which point Iruka thought that maybe Kakashi was told the wrong classroom. Dismissing himself from his three students, he went off to search for the jonin. 30 more minutes passed and neither Iruka nor Kakashi showed up. Now the three students were left to the nerves. Sakura was pacing in the front of the classroom. Sasuke leaned back into her chair and was staring out the window. It was Naruto who broke their silence. That's it. I am sick of waiting. I'll give that Kakashi Hatake a nice warm Uzumaki. Naruto welcome. Getting up from his seat next to Sasuke, he got up and walked to the chalkboard and grabbed the eraser. What are you going to do, Naruto? Sakura asked hesitantly. Just wait and see, Sakura-chan. Sasuke watched as Naruto put the eraser at the top of the door, leaving it cracked just enough to hold the eraser between the door and the frame. This will teach him not to mess with Uzumaki. Naruto. Sakura huffed at the prank the blonde was trying to set up the jonin with. Naruto, our sensei is an elite jonin ninja handpicked by the Hokage. You heard Iruka-sensei, there is no way he'd fall for such an obvious. Just as she was about to finish, the door slid open and a man with white hair and a mask covering half his face poked his head in. Sasuke watched from her seat as the eraser Naruto had just finished setting up fell onto the man's head with a thud. Naruto burst out laughing at some of the loose chalk managing to fall onto the man's face. Both Sakura and Sasuke watched horrified that their sensei actually fell for it. Silence filled the air. The three students watched their sensei warily watching his body for sudden movements and sign of attack. Kakashi just sighed, picking up the eraser and casually tossing it back into the chalkboard before turning to look at his new genin. My first impressions of your three are. The three were looking at him in anticipation. I hate you. Meet me at the Shinobi Academy roof in 3 minutes. Kakashi said, closing the door. Sasuke was angry. What the? He hates us. We should be mad at him. He showed up an hour late. There is no way he is our sensei. Sakura said, not particularly to anyone. She looked at Naruto, then to Sasuke. This is a joke, right? There is no way a Jonin fell for that. Naruto chuckled. Hey, don't worry Sakura-chan, I'm pretty awesome at pranks, so I knew it would work this whole time. Sasuke sighed, getting up, putting her hands in her pockets. She led the other two to the roof. They were arguing about if Kakashi was actually a Jonin or not because he fell for such a simple trap. Kakashi had been watching his students from a rooftop the whole time before his entrance, curious to see their personalities. He didn't get much information from them. The pink-haired girl, who was Sakura, gave him a goody two-shoes bookworm-type vibe. Her pacing and nervousness due to his tardiness indicated that she was worried about something, what he couldn't be sure. Then there was the Uchiha. She remained seated the entire time and took to looking out the window. Multiple times Kakashi had to duck in order to avoid being spotted by her. She gave off the too cool for school type vibe, but her eyes held a sadness that he instantly recognized as the pains of loss. She showed on the exterior that she was aloof and didn't care much for the other two students who were now her teammates, but he noticed that she would casually glance at the blonde from time to time. He needed more information to figure out why. The last of his students, Naruto Uzumaki, the son of his late sensei and the son of the fourth Hokage and a Jinchuriki. The sole reason Kakashi took up a genin team this year was for this student. Having been raised as an orphan, he struggled with finding acceptance and used pranks as a way of attention-seeking. Naruto seemed to be willing to do anything for attention. The Jonin was sad that up to this point of the boy's life he believed that he was all alone. Kakashi would definitely change that. He had fought teeth and nail to make sure he was on the young blonde's team so he would finally have a person in his life. He watched the Uzumaki set up one of his pranks and decided to humor the boy. There is no way he is a Jonin, I'm telling you Naruto, a Jonin would never fall for that. But he did, and you saw his vest right Sakura-chan? That was a Jonin vest. He is a Jonin, just admit that I'm a pretty good prankster. It might be the only thing you're good at Naruto. Sasuke shot out, which earned her a laugh from Sakura. Hey. The three walked onto the roof and was met by Kakashi sitting down reading a book. As the Uchiha got closer, she managed to see just what type of book the Jonin ninja had in his hand. She couldn't believe her eyes. He was reading a porno right in front of them. Seeing his students arrive, he offered an eye smile. Sasuke glared at him, obviously having seen the book in his hand. Sakura joined her in the glare and Naruto was looking obvious. Looking between his two teammates who were glaring at his perverted sensei. Aha, so you three made it. Please have a seat, we will go through some introduction. Please tell me about your favorite things, your least favorite things, hobbies and hamo and your dream. The masked man said, putting his book away as his three students took a seat in front of him. They were silent for a few moments. Kakashi-sensei, could you give us an example? Sakura asked. Oh well, sure, of course. Let's see. My favorite things, well, I like to read. My least favorite things, don't really feel like talking about it. My hobbies. Well, I have lots of hobbies. And my dream, well, that's quite personal, so I'll pass now. You, pink hair, go ahead. Kakashi said excitedly. The three students' sweat dropped. That didn't tell us anything. Okay, sensei. My name is Sakura Haruno, by the way. Kakashi nodded his acknowledgement with a quick nice to meet you. My favorite things are syrup-coated anko dumplings, umeboshi, and anmitsu. I also really like talking with Ino-chan about all sorts of things. I also like shinobi boys because they're so cool and manly, she said, trailing of looking at Sasuke. This made Kakashi's one eye squint. Did Sakura think Sasuke was a boy? How'd that happen? I dislike spicy foods and being made fun of, and cooking. My hobbies include reading and talking with Ino-chan and my other friends. My dream is to become a kunoichi and marry a strong shinobi. She said in a dreamy tone, once again looking at Sasuke before blushing and looking to her feet. That sealed the deal in Kakashi's mind. So, Sakura thinks Sasuke is a he. Interesting. Sasuke had to stop herself from gagging, scratch any compliment she had for Sakura before the girl was a total lost cause as a kunoichi. Naruto was thinking that now that he knew what Sakura liked, he'd make sure to buy her those things when he had enough money and would train twice as hard in order to be strong so that she would recognize him. Kakashi noticed the vast difference in his other two students' reaction to Sakura. He noted that the Uchiha seemed appalled and disgusted by her now, whereas Naruto seemed to have found some sort of motivation. He marked that down in his mental notes. Looking at the blonde boy to Sakura's right, he pointed, "You, blonde boy with the whiskers, your turn." Naruto blushed at his birthmarks being called out so openly. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen that comes in a pack, but I also like ramen that comes in the bowl too, and Ichiraku ramen stand. I like training and learning new jutsu. I dislike the 3 minutes it takes to make ramen in the microwave and when people judge without getting to know the person. My dream is to become the greatest Hokage ever." Kakashi watched as his two female students rolled their eyes at Naruto ramen talks, but he watched the difference between the two female kunoichi at hearing Naruto dream. Sakura looked at Naruto as though he were stupid, and it'd be impossible for him to become Hokage. Whereas the Uchiha looked interested in the boy's ambition. He also didn't miss the look Naruto gave Sakura as he spoke, seemingly interested in the girl's opinion of him. Kakashi noted the annoyed look the Uchiha had when Naruto did that though. He wondered why she seemed so bothered by it. He gestured to the Uchiha. "Last but not least, I am Sasuke Uchiha. I don't like anything in particular," she said, looking down and to the right, which Kakashi noted meant she was either lying or hiding something, but he had time to figure it out. "And I hate a lot of things. I don't have a dream, because I will make it happen. It's more like a goal or ambition. I will revive my clan, and a certain someone." The Uchiha stated, trailing off. Kakashi watched his two other students look at the Uchiha, horrified at what they heard. Kakashi sighed, so that was what was primarily on the young Uchiha mind, huh? Revenge. Kakashi knew that revenge and hatred were a slippery slope, especially for a person like an Uchiha who felt such intense emotions, the Sharingan being proof of that. He would have to find a better outlet for the young girl if he wished to save her from that pain. Clapping his hands together, he brought his three students out of their thoughts. "All right, now that introductions are over with. Tomorrow, I want you all to meet me at Team 7 training ground at 5 a.m. Also, I'd advise you not eat breakfast of dinner because you'll likely just throw it up." The Jonin said before disappearing in a puff of smoke, leaving the three genin on the roof. "Interesting guy," Sakura said out loud to no one in particular. "Hey, Sakura-chan, wanna grab some food? I know this ni. You know," Sakura said, shuddering as if he had asked her to do some obscene gesture. She turned to her other teammate Sasuke. "Hey Sasuke-kun, would you like to join me for a walk?" Sakura asked with a smile and hopeful look on her face. Sasuke ignored the pink-haired girl and turned to Naruto. He was watching the interaction between her and Sakura with a distant look. Having watched and observed the blonde specifically for the past 3 years of the academy, she knew that look, it was one she felt all the time. "You're going to eat still, Naruto? Even after what Kakashi said?" Sasuke asked the blonde, staring directly into his blue crystals. Naruto turned to her, meeting her eyes. He smiled once their eyes met and Sasuke felt her pulse quicken. His smile was so bright it felt as though it was radiating heat. She maintained eye contact, even as her pulse quickened, and she was sure her face was beginning to turn a shade red. "Aha, well, you see, I would be too hungry if I didn't eat something at least tonight, and if I was too busy thinking about food, I wouldn't be able to perform my best tomorrow," Naruto said, sheepishly rubbing the back of his head as he spoke. Sasuke watched his face turn red in embarrassment. That was the second thing she found herself liking about Naruto, that charming smile was only second to his expressive eyes. Thinking about what he said for a moment, Sasuke responded, "I will go with you," she said, walking towards the staircase before the blonde could reply. Naruto was left speechless for a moment. He hadn't really intended on inviting Sasuke, hoping to get a date with his crush, but he never had the opportunity to eat with one of his classmates before. So he shook the distractive thoughts out his head and ran to catch up with his Uchiha teammate. Sakura watched as Naruto and Sasuke started down the stairs. Why was Sasuke offering to join Naruto? Did he rather eat with Naruto than hang out with me? Why? Sakura decided she would join the two, taking off to catch them. The trio walked out the academy and into the streets of Konoha. Naruto was visibly excited to spend time with his teammates, practically jumping up and down as they walked. Sasuke sighed audibly to hide the giggle she wanted to let out over Naruto's excitement. Naruto didn't go out with his peers at all. He was treated like a black sheep at the school for whatever reason. Naruto had an odd way of behaving and speaking, almost like he was 6 years younger than he was, but she found it endearing in a way. She couldn't help but blame herself a bit. For 3 years she hadn't built the courage to hang out with the Uzumaki outside of school. 3 years she watched him sulk sadly every day. For being alone, part of her blamed herself for not stepping in sooner. Her family tried encouraging her when they were alive. The thought of her family made her mood instantly sour as Naruto spoke. "So where are you guys trying to go? I know a great ramen place we could go to, and look, I have these." Naruto said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 free meal passes he got for Ichiraku Ramen. They were his last 2 meal passes, and if his teammates took them, then he'd have to just eat instant ramen for 2 days until his next paycheck. But the sacrifice was worth it if he got to spend time with them. Sasuke just looked at the free meal passes before taking one wordlessly. Naruto swore he heard the boy mutter a thank you under his breath, but it was too low and inaudible to be sure. Sakura, following Sasuke led, took the other coupon, not even offering a smile to the boy. Sakura turned her attention to Sasuke. "Hey Sasuke, it's not too often you spend time out in the village. Is there a reason you are joining us today?" Sasuke glared at Sakura. She speaks as if she was the one who was intruding when it's actually her. Sasuke just glared and smirked when the pink-haired girl took a step away from her. Sasuke, still smirking, faced forward and continued their walk to Ichiraku, ignoring the pink-haired kunoichi. Naruto was also curious why Sasuke wanted to eat with him, but seeing his reaction to Sakura confused the blonde, he thought it was a valid question. "Yeah. Why did you decided to join us, Sasuke?" Naruto asked. Sasuke looked at Naruto. His eyes held a genuine curiosity that she found herself speaking before she thought about the response. "I didn't like the idea of you eating alone." She turned her head quickly, so she missed the smile on Naruto's face and the scowl and confusion on Sakura's. They reached Ichiraku Ramen and Naruto was so excited he grabbed both his teammates' arms and dragged them into the ramen stand before sitting in the middle chair of the booth. Sasuke took her seat to his left. Her arm was tinglingly with the warm sensation of Naruto's touch. She had no idea why her body felt so hot at his touch. She took her opposite arm and traced the place Naruto had touched her. "Don't just grab a hold of me like that, Naruto. You can't just touch people whenever you know," Sakura said, shouting at the blonde, punching him in the arm. "Ouch. Sorry Sakura, I was just excited. This is the best ramen shop in town, believe it. It's gonna be so worth it," Naruto said with a smile as he rubbed his shoulder where Sakura punched. "Hey Tsuki, let's get some menus for my friends, please." Sasuke saw the older man turn, then smile warmly at Naruto before looking at her, then Sakura. He greeted both of them with the same warm smile. Sasuke just stared blankly at the man. His smile brought no feeling to her cold heart. Sakura offered a friendly smile in return. "All right, here is the menus. I'll send a server in a few moments to get your orders," the man said, smiling and bowing slightly before leaving the two to look over the menu. Sasuke looked at the menu. It was what you'd expect from a ramen stand. Mainly the menu consisted of different types of ramen and a few other items you could choose from. Sasuke quickly decided what she wanted before looking around the stand. It was a small stand, just 6 chairs made up the booth. She looked again at the menu, paying attention to the ingredients. It's no wonder he is so short. If this is the ramen he eats, it has no real substance to it. I'm going to add tomatoes in mine. A little fruit at least will balance out all this salt. So, Sasuke, what do you think about our sensei? Sakura asked, leaning over Naruto to get a look at her. Sasuke didn't bother looking at the pink-haired kunoichi. He is young, probably late 20s, so he is probably very skilled. He didn't share much about himself outside his name, and he likes to read. Not much to go off of for now, she replied dryly. Sakura nodded her head in agreement. I think that he is probably a slouch since he was so late today and didn't even offer a valid reason for it. Plus, he said he hated us. He barely even knows us. How can come up with such harsh judgments so fast? Sakura shouted as loud as Naruto was. Sakura was arguably louder. If Sasuke wanted to keep her hearing, she might have to consider buying some earmuffs. I think that he is pretty cool. Did you see how he just disappeared off the roof? That was so cool, and he covers most his face. He probably has some really cool, scary looking scars that he is hiding from intense ninja battles. Naruto said. Hey Naruto-kun, who are your friends? Sasuke watched as a female come out the back of the ramen shop. She had a notepad in her hand and a dirty apron around her waist. Sasuke was sure that she was the waitress. She offered all of them a kind smile, but Sasuke noted that the girl's smile grew twice as large at Naruto, and her eyes had a shine that Ino's would get upon looking at a boy like Kiba. Sasuke had a warm feeling in her stomach, and she shot a glare at the girl in response to making her feel uncomfortable. If the girl noticed, she didn't show it, continuing to eye Naruto. Sasuke watched as the lady walked closer. The girl had to be 17 to 18 years old, only a few years older than them. She wore the same plain white kimono as her boss. But since she was a girl who worked close to fires and heat, her kimono was open at the top, showing off her and cleavage a bit. Naruto smiled his charming bright smile at seeing the girl, which made Sasuke even angrier, and she didn't know why. Sasuke and Sakura watched as the girl walked over and bent forward at the hips, so her forearms were resting over the counter that separated her from the seated customers. The action gave Naruto an eyeful of her cleavage, and Naruto's face shot bright red. It didn't take an expert investigator to know why or what he was looking at. Aim-chan, these are my new teammates Sakura, Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto said, forcing his eyes away from Ayame's cleavage to meet hers. When he did, he saw her surprised but visibly happy face. Oh, so you passed the Genin exam. When we didn't see you yesterday, me and Pa were nervous, but I see it's all for naught. Congratulations Naruto-kun, I'm so proud of you. The girl said, reaching over and ruffling Naruto's hair. The action made him blush even redder. Sasuke wasn't sure if it was because the girl ruffled his hair like a child, or the close-up on her cleavage the action had caused. Either way, she didn't like the reaction that Naruto gave. The rising heat in her stomach had sparked into full-blown fire. Whoever this Ayame was, Sasuke decided she wasn't a fan. Stop it Ayame-chan, you're embarrassing me. Naruto said, but didn't pull out of the girl's touch. The girl just smiled, pulling her hand out of the young shinobi's hair before pulling her arms up and leaning her elbows on the countertop, resting her face in her hands. Sasuke noticed that the action still gave Naruto plenty few of the girl's cleavage. Is she doing this on purpose? No self-respecting lady would offer this much eye service. And why is she just staring at him with that look? Sasuke felt her temper rising. She glared at the lady, who was ignoring her completely, still just staring at Naruto. This made Naruto blush even more as he awkwardly looked anywhere but directly in front of him to avoid being a creep to Ayame. Sakura watched the interaction. Was this lady flirting with Naruto? Ayame was average looking, she wasn't ugly, nor was she really pretty. Her were larger than Sakura but maybe slightly smaller than Ino's, and Ino had the biggest pair in their class, which the blonde never let her forget. Sakura watched as Ayame seemed to forget all about her and Sasuke choosing to stare at Naruto, who was looking around. He was obviously trying to avoid staring at the lady's cleavage, which she thought was honorable of him. Most teenage boys were horn dogs, at least from what Ino said, so it took a truly decent person to not stare when the opportunity was literally right in front of them. As Sakura watched Naruto and Ayame trying to figure out if she was flirting or just happened to forget that she was exposing herself like this, she caught sight of Sasuke sending a death glare at the lady. Why does Sasuke look so upset by this? She was pulled out her thoughts about Sasuke's behavior when he spoke. Hey, are you going to take our orders or not? Sasuke spat at the lady, which seemed to be enough to distract her from staring at Naruto. Oh, he must have been hungry. Of course, my apologies, what can I get you? 3, it'll be on the house, consider it a present for graduating the academy. Ayame said, shooting a wink towards Naruto, which made Sasuke squeeze her hands into a fist. Oh, I'll take my regular 2 bowls please. Naruto quickly shouted. I'll try your miso and beef ramen. Sakura added, sliding the menu to Ayame, who gracefully took it as she wrote down the orders. And I'll take the Sapporo ramen, with tomatoes, extra tomatoes. Sasuke said, still glaring at the waitress as she handed her the menu. Ayame nodded, writing them down. She went to grab the menu from Sasuke. As she went to pull it away, she tugged, and it didn't move. She tugged one more time and it didn't move again. Bring her eyes to meet the Uchihas. She was met with an intense glare that stuck her in the heart. If looks could, Ayame was a dead girl walking. Nervously smiling, she tugged again, harder this time, but she met no resistance and ended up stumbling backwards a few steps. Regaining her composure, she looked at the girl, who smirked evilly at her. She did that on purpose. Is this Sasuke even a girl? Ayame thought as she looked closer at Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke's face was undeniably pretty. Looking at her made Ayame feel jealous because in comparison she looked rather average. Even Sakura was very pretty. Naruto's undisputable female teammate had pink medium long hair and wore a red shirt with a skirt that spit down the middle, allowing more mobility, which was due to her being a shinobi. Under that skirt she wore compressions as to hide her undergarments. Sakura was undeniable female, but the Uchiha outside her gorgeous face looked much like a boy. The clothes this person wore were completely manly and masculine, yet Ayame wasn't sure if the Uchiha was indeed a boy. It was the Uchiha face, it was too gorgeous even for a boy. Her hair was unkempt and pointed out in random spots, which made it look more like a lion's mane than hair. The Uchiha hair was so unkempt compared to the rest of the Uchiha appearance it almost didn't belong, that with it being short really made it hard to pin down her. Ayame glanced briefly at her chest. She wasn't the biggest, but she wasn't small either. Her were a perfect size to her. Glancing at Sakura's chest, Sakura was for sure female, although her were not as big. They poked out from beneath her red shirt, so they were noticeable there. Glancing at the Uchiha chest, she couldn't tell what was going on there. The Uchiha blue shirt was baggy around the chest area. If she did have, they would have to be smaller than Sakura's. Ayame didn't realize she was still staring at the Uchiha, who had crossed her arms, hiding her chest from view. Ayame noticed that Sasuke seemed even more annoyed and hostile now that she was staring at her chest. Naruto broke her out of her thoughts. You okay, Ayame-chan? Naruto asked with a genuine concern that made her smile. Yes, sorry, I'll be back with your orders briefly. She then disappeared to the back, deciding to contemplate the Uchiha later. This is going to be so good, I promise you won't regret it. Naruto said, rubbing his hands together excitedly. How often do you eat here, Naruto? Sakura asked him curiously. Naruto seemed to ponder that question for a few minutes. I don't know, at least 3 to 4 times a week. Sakura nodded. She figured he had to come here pretty often for the waitress and the chief to be so comfortable with him. I think you should stop coming here. Sasuke said plainly, which got an unbelievable gasp from Naruto, who looked at her as though she had just said the most blasphemous thing he ever heard. Why would I do that? This place is awesome and Ayame-chan is giving us free food. I am not going to stop eating here ever. Naruto declared, raising his fist in protest. The food here has no substance to it, that is probably why you're so short, Pipsqueak, Sasuke retorted. Hey, ramen is the food of the gods. I'm sure it'll hit a growth spurt. Sasuke huffed. You may hit a growth spurt if you ever ate healthier meals, she replied, still not looking into his eyes, fearful that her own might betray her feelings. Well, if I knew how to cook, I'd eat more at home, I suppose. Sasuke's response shook both Naruto and Sakura, neither expecting her to say what she did next. I'll teach you, if you stop coming here as often. Sure, I always wanted to learn, I guess. Sasuke decided that she shouldn't have come. First it was Ayame and her provocative attitude towards Naruto. Then Sakura was intervening in her attempt to understand Naruto and the feeling she got around him alone. She decided Sakura was a pest. She had better things to do than to sit and listen to Naruto attempted flirting. So, Sakura-chan, what made you become a shinobi? Naruto asked. Sakura, turning to Naruto, brought her last few noodles remaining in her bowl to her face. Chewing it and swallowing, taking a sip of her tea before responding. Well, Ino-chan is a close friend of mine, she was going to the academy, and I mainly wanted to go with her. After I learned more about what a shinobi does, I thought it was very noble and inspiring, so I've stuck around. Sasuke huffed at this response. As if being a shinobi is always so wonderful. That's awesome, Sakura-chan. I know you will be a great kunoichi one day, Naruto said, smiling brightly at her. That's awesome, Sakura-chan, I know you will be a great kunoichi one day. Sasuke mocked. She was seething in her seat. She felt like someone was pouring boiling hot water in her ears. Sakura blushed. She knew Naruto meant what he said, he practically screamed it with his eyes. Everything about Naruto was open and inviting. Was Naruto always this kind? Were his eyes always this telling? Sakura had always held out on insulting the boy's looks even when she was making fun of him with Ino. Sakura only just verbally acknowledged the boy was not ugly, maybe stupid, but when he is smiling like this, he definitely wasn't ugly. Sasuke had seen enough, she really wasn't here for this. I am going to leave, thank you for the meal, Naruto. Sasuke muttered, standing up, walking towards her district and away from the two. She was losing her cool. Naruto was so dumb, Sakura wouldn't have even bothered coming if she hadn't offered to join him. She was the one who had recognized the look of loneliness in his eyes after her rejection. If the idiot can't see that for himself, then there is nothing I can do. She told herself, trying to convince herself that she was so upset by Naruto's naivety and nothing else. Wait, Sasuke, Naruto called out to his teammate as he walked away. Sasuke didn't even spare him a second glance. I wonder what his problem is. Naruto looked over at Sasuke's seat. He happened to glance at the boy's bowl, as he was turning back to face forward in his seat. Sasuke had managed to eat all his food before leaving. At least he didn't hate it. Maybe I'll see him stop by, or he will come with me again some other time. Naruto turned, grabbing his second bowl, raising it to his lips and swallowing the rest of the remaining broth. He looked over to Sakura, who was deep in thought about something. She also seemed to be close to done eating. Sakura, would you like me to walk you home? Naruto's question seemed to shake Sakura out of her thoughts. She casted him a contemplative look. Before shaking her head, no, Naruto, thanks for the invite, I'm going to head home now. She said, giving him a small smile and waved goodbye before walking away. Naruto sighed as he watched her leave. He knew they had to wake up early tomorrow, so both his teammates had valid reasons for leaving so suddenly. He just wished they could have stayed together a little while longer. Next day, Sasuke arrived at the Team 7 designated training grounds. When she got home, she found a note on the door with the meeting location for today. She figured that since she had received a letter from Kakashi, then Naruto and Sakura must have too. She arrived at the training grounds at 4:30. Wearing her usual attire, except she added a few extra kunai and shuriken to her pouch. When she arrived, she wasn't surprised that Kakashi-sensei wasn't present. At 4:45 Sakura came into the field. The sun still yet to rise made seeing her face hard until she got closure. Upon better inspection, Sakura looked exhausted, rubbing the sleep in her eyes. Sasuke was sure that the girl hadn't even noticed her yet. Sakura walked closer to the tree in the middle of the training ground that Sasuke was standing under. She didn't notice him till it was too late and his figure popped up in her peripheral, scaring the crap out of her. Jumping at the sight of him, she said, "Geez, Sasuke-kun, you scared me." Sakura said, hand over heart. Suddenly she was feeling more alert. Sasuke didn't even respond to her, just turning away to watch her surroundings. She had no way to be sure that Kakashi actually wasn't here. She hasn't been able to completely relax since she stepped into the training grounds. She wasn't sure if it was nerves, but she truly felt like she was being watched. Naruto came running into the field at 4:59. Sasuke watched as the boy sprinted onto the field, sweat glinting off his forehead. He must have run from wherever his apartment was all the way to the training grounds. "Idiot. I thought you went and quit, Pipsqueak." Sasuke shot at the blonde who was leaning over, catching his breath. At hearing the insult, Naruto shot a glare at Sasuke. "Yay, but then you wouldn't get to see my handsome face, and we both know that'd be a terrible world for you, head. And I'll never quit or go back on my word, that's my nindo." Sasuke rolled her eyes at the retort. "It wouldn't you to be more punctual, Naruto?" Sakura shouted at the blonde. "Well, tell that to our sensei, at least I got here on time," Naruto said. Sakura looked at her watch. It was 5:04 and their sensei was indeed late. "I hope he doesn't make us wait for an hour again," Sakura griped. They sat there for 2 hours. Naruto made small talk with both Sasuke and Sakura. Mostly Sakura, because she would at least continue the conversation past 3 sentences. "Gosh, what is taking Kakashi-sensei so long?" Sakura was pissed. There is no way a person who is always late could make Jonin. It felt so irresponsible and not cool. Especially when she was the one who was waiting. "I don't know, Sakura-chan. This place is kind of giving me the creeps." Naruto said. His hair was sticking to the back of his neck. He knew, or at least understood, the feeling of being watched. He felt it right now. He's felt it since he walked into the clearing where his other 2 teammates were. Sakura just ignored him, but Sasuke gave him a questioning look before saying, "What do you mean, Pipsqueak? Don't tell me you scared of being out in the woods at night?" Sasuke teased. No, it's just that I feel like I'm being watched, and trust me, I know when I'm being watched. It's just us out here, Naruto. I got here before you, and Sasuke was the first one here. We would know if someone was here." "Stop being stupid," Sakura said with an annoyed, tired tone. Sasuke shot a glare at Sakura which made her take a step back. Sasuke had such a harsh and mean glare. It was as if each time she glared at someone she was picturing their deaths by her hand. It was as if she was a predator. "She looks at me like I'm prey when she does that. If Sasuke was a predator, he'd be a cat." Sakura thought, turning her head away for the glare. No, Sasuke was a fiercer animal than a cat. No, more like a snake. Wait, no. He was like an eagle or hawk. "I was here first, Sakura." "I agree with Naruto, something hasn't felt right to me either." Kakashi decided he'd take out his book. From the looks of it, both Sasuke and Naruto were feeling his gaze, which is impressive, seeing as though that was the only indication they had that he was indeed close and watching them. He'd settle with reading and wait till they got relaxed before striking. He'd just spare them glances in the meantime so their super sensitive radars wouldn't go off. It was nearly 10 a.m. when Sasuke finally let down her guard, and she was furious. There is no way he would make us wait 5 hours. Her thought was interrupted by the brief tussling of leaves. She barely had time to react, pulling her kunai out as she deflected a kunai that had been thrown at her. She looked at Naruto and saw that he too was now up on his feet in a defensive posture, kunai in hand. She smirked. "So, the idiot is not half bad." Naruto managed to block a kunai that was thrown at him as well. Sasuke turned to Sakura. She sighed. The girl hadn't even gotten to her feet yet. She was shaking slightly, and her eyes held look of fear. She was staring at a kunai that was thrown expertly between her legs, stopping just short of hitting her pelvic area. Attached to the kunai fluttering against the light breeze was a note. Sasuke walked over and read the note. To my genin candidates, you have until 3 p.m. to find me and capture one of my 2 bells that I have in my possession. If you fail to be in possession of a bell, then at the end of the 5 hours, I'm giving you, that person will be sent back to the Shinobi Academy, while those who do possess a bell will be full-fledged genin of Konoha. I advise you to come at me with the intent to, otherwise none of you will pass. Your sensei for now, Kakashi Hatake. P.S. Consider this a free lesson since you all might not be around for long, but don't drop your guard on assignment. Her face must have given something away because Naruto spoke. What's the note say, bastard? Sasuke just handed it to him, watching as he read the message, then passed it to Sakura, who finally managed to get off her feet. So, our sensei wants to play hide and seek. Well, little does he know I'm great at hide and seek. Well, usually I'm not the one seeking but hiding, but all the same. Naruto shouted. Bouncing on his toes excitedly, Sasuke knew he'd take off any moment to go looking for their sensei and the bells. Don't be stupid, Naruto. Kakashi is a jonin. If you go wandering off in the woods alone, he pummel you and there won't be anything left to find. Plus, the training grounds are probably riddled with traps. Sasuke replied. Then what do you expect me to do, head? If I stand around with you two, I'm just wasting time to get a bell. Naruto shouted. As if you could even find him, let alone defeat him by yourself if you do. Sakura yelled at Naruto. She finished reading the note. She was racking her brain trying to come up with a solution that would involve her still being a genin by the end of the day. Well, it's better than sitting here and arguing with you two, Naruto said, taking off towards the forest. Naruto, wait! Sasuke shouted, running off after him. Sasuke-kun, Sakura said, taking off to catch the 3. Naruto sprinted into the woods where the kunai had come from. He started searching the ground and area for any tracks or clues about where Kakashi-sensei went to after throwing the kunai at them. Sasuke and Sakura caught up to him. Don't just run off like that, Sakura shouted at the blonde when they caught up. If you're trying to get yourself, just let me know. I might be able to help. Sasuke spat. I am not, I just couldn't sit around anymore. Sasuke rolled her eyes and began to help Naruto look for clues on Kakashi. Sakura watched the two confused. Are you helping him try to find Kakashi-sensei, Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked, her face twisted with confusion. Sasuke just ignored Sakura, continuing to help Naruto in the search. They looked all around but couldn't find anything. So, she began spreading out her search. Naruto seemed to flow right with her, spacing from her in the opposite direction, looking in areas opposite of hers for clues. Sakura joined Sasuke, standing 5 feet away from him as she searched the ground and areas for clues. Why are we working together with Naruto, Sasuke-kun? There are only 2 bells, and Naruto is the dead last. We should just try to work together without. Stop talking to me, Sakura. Even if me and you teamed up to find Kakashi-sensei, we wouldn't be able to defeat him. It'd be best if all 3 of us work together. We can figure out the bell situation after we find Kakashi, and that's assuming we are able to even get a bell from him. Sakura quieted at this. They searched for clues for Kakashi for 3 hours. They'd run across a clue here and there, a foot track here, broken twig branch there. But after 3 hours of searching, they ran cold. All the other supposed clues just ran them into traps. If she had to pull Naruto out of one more pitfall trap, she'd leave him in the hole to rot. Geez, where is this guy? Naruto said. He barely saw the kunai flying towards his head until it was too late. Naruto watched the object flying towards him. He froze in that moment. He saw his death. He saw the kunai pierce him through his throat. He could almost feel the blood pouring out of his hands as he tried to stop the bleeding. Blinking his eyes, he thought that it would be his last time being able to do that action. Just before the kunai impaled his flesh, it was deflected by another kunai that Sasuke had thrown. He looked at her in shock. He didn't think anyone could react that fast. She was staring at him, her Sharingan tomes spiraling in a circle. Her eyes looked angry, but excited at the same time. It was hard to pin. You really want to die today, huh, idiot? Sasuke said before running off in the direction the kunai came from with Sakura hot on her heels. Naruto just stood there for a moment. He saw how angry Sasuke was just then at him. He didn't know why. Bastard. Thinking you're so much better than me. I'll show you. Naruto took off after the two. When Sasuke reached the area Kakashi had thrown the kunai, she was expecting him to have repositioned and hidden himself away. She slid to a stop 20 meters from the man. Kakashi was sitting down at the base of a tree. His back resting up against the tall wood, his left leg outstretched while his right was up, feet planted on the ground. He held his erotica book in his left hand. To the untrained eye he looked completely relaxed, with tons of openings for attack. But she knew better, her Sharingan could see. Although he looked relaxed, he was like a snake posed to strike at any moment. His muscles tensed and flexed every few moments, his eyes weren't on the book but looking above it at her. Nice for you to join me, Sasuke. You could've Naruto with that kunai. She spat, seething rage. Could've, but I didn't. The Uchiha ignored him, her hand hovering over her weapons pouched. If Kakashi so much as moved an inch, she'd strike him dead with a barrage of kunai and shuriken. A huff was the only reply the Jonin got as acknowledgement. Shortly after Sasuke slid to her stop, she was joined by Sakura, then Naruto. Kakashi observed the three. They had been attempting to track him for 3 hours and weren't even getting close to finding him. He decided to spare them the shame, because at the rate they were going they'd all be sent back to the academy without even having located him. Sakura was visibly more exhausted than either Sasuke or Naruto. He would have to work on her conditioning if they even passed. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto shouted. You should have kept hiding, but it's too late now. Uzumaki Naruto has you in his sights and I am not going to let you get away. Naruto said before taking off past Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto, what are you doing? Didn't you hear Sasuke-kun earlier? Sakura shouted, but it was too late. Naruto was already engaging Kakashi in taijutsu. As Naruto ran past her, Sasuke noticed something. She smirked before grabbing Sakura by the arm, causing the girl to blush before dispersing. She kept her eyes on the Naruto in the clearing fighting Kakashi and went and hid in the bushes with Sakura. Sasuke-kun, what are you doing? Sasuke turned to Sakura, Sharingan still active. That is not Naruto. Sasuke said plainly. Huh, was the pink-haired girl's response. What do you mean that's not Naruto? I can see him right. Just before Sakura could finish her sentence, she saw Naruto disappear in a cloud of smoke. After Kakashi decided to stop parrying and blocking all of Naruto's strikes, he sent one of his on at the boy. Kakashi smiled, bringing his book to his face. You know, Naruto, for someone who finished last in the Shinobi Academy, I will admit you are quite surprising. Although all three of you are unimpressively terrible, you at least are unpredictable. Still terrible, but quite unpredictable. It's impressive really to know the Shadow Clone Jutsu already as a genin. Quite impressive indeed. Shadow Clone Jutsu. But Naruto couldn't even produce a clone in the academy. I haven't even heard of that jutsu before. Sakura said as she watched their Jonin instructor. It wasn't a jutsu taught at the academy. I am not sure how Naruto learned it, but as soon as I saw the clone I knew it wasn't him. Sasuke said, not taking her eyes off their sensei. She heard slight rustling behind her and Sakura. They turned to look and saw Naruto join them, his eyes locked in on Kakashi so they wouldn't have to find him again. You were right, Sakura. He is good. He wasn't even trying against my clone, he just read his book and blocked the whole time. Naruto said, sighing as he stared frustratingly at Kakashi. Of course I was right. We won't have any hope unless we work together. Right, Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked, looking towards her. Sasuke sighed. They really didn't have a chance unless they worked together. Yeah, we need to come up with a plan to get those bells off his hip. It won't be easy, but we won't be able to do it individually. Saying it again in front of Naruto pissed her off. She didn't need him thinking she wanted or needed his help. Okay, so do you have a plan? Naruto asked. Sasuke remained quiet. She didn't have a solid plan, but she did have an idea. How many of those clones can you make? Sasuke asked, looking at Naruto. She wouldn't have been surprised if he was only able to make that one. She should have known directly confronting Kakashi wasn't the play, but if she didn't react to the kunai he thrown at Naruto, he could have died. It all just pissed her off. You know, Naruto, Kakashi said out loud, another thing impressive about you is you wear that awful bright eye-catching orange, as your sensei for now at least. I'd suggest that you change your outfit if you pass today, because that orange is bound to get you ED. I realize the hypocrisy in what I'm about to say though. Even though you wear that ridiculous outfit, I can honestly say I don't know where you are. Kakashi finished turning another page of his book. Well, I have an idea, and we can throw your idea in it too as a backup plan, Sakura said after having listened to Sasuke's idea. It didn't really tell them how they were going to go about accomplishing his idea, but she hoped that her plan would be able to accomplish one of their two goals. Sasuke just turned to her with a face that said, "Well, are you going to make us wait all day?" Sakura took the look as a sign Sasuke was willing to hear her out, so she told Naruto and Sasuke her idea. Kakashi was actually impressed, although the three were absolutely terrible. They couldn't track, they'd easily have failed if he didn't decide to show mercy. But at least they were good at concealing themselves. That was an important skill for shinobi. Then again, there is Naruto. Kakashi sighed. Naruto had hidden so well, but it seemed that his barbs at his outfit got a rise out of the boy. Because he abandoned his hiding spot and came out alone to face the Jonin in the open. Not the sharpest tool in the shed. You know, I was giving you a compliment earlier, Naruto. So why did you come out of your great hiding spot? Kakashi asked the blonde teenager, not taking his eyes off his erotica. Because hiding away is boring. Especially when you're teasing me about my clothes. Get ready, sensei. Uzumaki Naruto is about to kick your. Kakashi just smiled at the boy. Man, you remind me of him so much. Muti Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto said before 300 clones appeared around Kakashi. Kakashi held up a finger. Impressive again, Naruto. Yes, the rumors were true. Would you mind waiting for me to finish this page? This part is really good. Naruto rolled his eyes before him and his clones started rushing their sensei, not bothering to wait. Sighing, Kakashi swiftly put his book away. Kids nowadays have no patience. Kakashi started swiftly dispersing the clones. He had to put the book away purely because the number of clones, he was sure he'd be able to block and parry the kids' attack. His taijutsu was only average at best, but the number of the clones would make reading and doing all that a hassle. If he could swiftly take them all out, then he'd have more time to read. Kakashi was only faintly aware that dispersing so many clones so rapidly was causing the smoke that they created when dispersed to grow rapidly around him, limiting his vision since he hadn't pulled out his Sharingan yet. He didn't have the acute eyes needed to track all of them. Luckily, his senses were really good, because as he turned to dodge, a punch sent by one of the Naruto's three kunai were sent flying at his back. As soon as his feet hit the floor, Sasuke was on him. Her taijutsu was good, it could improve, but was better than Naruto. He was being pushed back, staying on the defensive, letting her set the pace. So, he decided to switch it up and fight back. He sent a right jab at Sasuke, which she calmly parried. He followed the jab with a left cross. When she blocked it smoothly, he dropped down to sweep her legs from under her. Sasuke had fast reflexes. He noted after she blocked a kunai he sent at Naruto earlier. Seeing it firsthand up close was something else, though. She dove in and out like a bird, and her strikes, although not bone-shaking powerful, stung like a whip. She jumped over his attempted leg sweep and kicked at his exposed head. Kakashi caught her attempted kick and stood up as she fell to the ground, landing on one foot. He walked back a few paces, forcing her to hop as he still held onto her leg. Showing an impressive skill of flexibility, Sasuke jumped off one foot, sending her only available leg towards his head. Kakashi dropped her left leg to block her right high kick. As soon as her leg connected with Kakashi's racied hands and her other foot hit the ground, she leapt forward, reaching for one of the bells around his waist. Tricky girl, Kakashi thought, pushing her away from him to gather himself. Your taijutsu is definitely better than Naruto's, I'll tell you that. Kakashi said as his hand instinctively reached for his book. But you will need more than that to defeat me, Kakashi said to the girl. The smoke from Naruto's shadow clones was clearing so he could barely make out Sasuke's figure. His hand reached for its familiar pocket, but was met with an unfamiliar emptiness. He frantically searched for it as the last of the smoke cleared. You did it, Sasuke-kun. Hell yeah, bastard. Kakashi looked up to see both Naruto and Sakura at Sasuke's side. His eyes narrowed at what was in Sasuke's right hand. His Ika Ika Paradise manga was in her hand. How did she? Oh, so she was never actually reaching for the bells. Clever. You are missing something, sensei. Naruto teased. Sasuke started weaving some hand signs and Kakashi immediately knew what she was going to do. She was going to burn his book. Wait. Come on now, destruction of property is a crime. Kakashi cried out. Sasuke smirked at the Jonin. Then give us the bells and I won't destroy your book. Kakashi sighed before tossing the two bells over to Sasuke, who grabbed both of them out the air. Now the book. Ignoring him, Sasuke looked at him and asked, are you really going to send the person that doesn't have one of these by 3 back to the academy? Kakashi just nodded his head. Yes, now the book please, Kakashi practically whined. Sasuke looked at Naruto, then Sakura. Sakura was looking at her with eyes that showed she was expecting her to give her one of the bells. Naruto's eyes, however, was downcasted. He didn't even believe she was considering giving it to him. Sighing, Sasuke reached over and handed Naruto the bell. Suddenly Kakashi's wristwatch timer went off. One moment he was 15 meters away, next he was in between the three and yanking his book out of Sasuke's hand. Welp, my little genin, time's up. Kakashi said, turning to Sakura. And you, Miss Pink Hair, don't have a bell. Sakura looked terrified. She casted Sasuke a concerned face that was a mix of fear, anger and betrayal. Sasuke's face remained emotionless as she stared back at Sakura until Kakashi spoke to Sakura, taking her eyes off the Uchiha. You know what that means, right, Sakura? Sakura held her head down in shame. It means I'm going back to the academy. That's exactly right. Kakashi was cut off by Naruto's shout. That's not far and you know it, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi tilted his head to the side, looking at the blonde disapprovingly. And why is that, Naruto? Because without Sakura's plan, we might not have even got the book from you. It was her idea to use the smoke from my shadow clones to block your vision and allow Sasuke to get close enough to have an opportunity to grab it. Quote, and was it also part of her plan to sit back and watch you two risk your lives in battling me? Kakashi asked coldly, glaring at Naruto. Well, she was watching just in case you took off. We weren't sure if we would get another opportunity if you got away. Naruto defended her. Kakashi pretended to ponder what Naruto said for a moment, before turning to Sasuke, a mischievous glint in his eye. And why did you decide to give the bell to Naruto and not Sakura? Sasuke. Kakashi asked, eyeing the girl. Because even though it was Sakura's plan to use the smoke, I also planned to work with Naruto to get a bell. No matter whose plan or idea it was, there was two common denominators. Two critical pieces to my idea and Sakura. Me and Naruto. So, I figured without us it wouldn't be possible, so he deserved the other bell. Sasuke. Sakura said softly, her head down in defeat. Here, Sakura, take my bell, Naruto said, smiling, trying to hand it to her. Sasuke gave Naruto a stiff glare, but he ignored it. He couldn't live with himself knowing Sakura was hurting and there was something he could do about it. Yeah, it would going back to the academy, but it's not like he hasn't experienced it 3 times before already. And Naruto, Sakura was holding back her tears and she was finding it difficult to speak. Interesting predicament we have here, Kakashi said, bringing a hand to his chin. Then he stood straight up and put one finger in the air as though he just had some grand idea. How about this? What if I offer you guys another 3 hours, to grab just one bell? If you do that, you all can stay as a team, but if you fail, all 3 of you go back to the academy. Sakura looked up at him with hope. Naruto stared at him with determination. Sasuke looked as though she was barely even considering it. Before she could voice her opinion, Naruto spoke up. You got a deal. Naruto. Sasuke spat. Are you sure, Naruto? Sakura asked, her hope evident in her eyes. Naruto was glaring at Sasuke, who returned his glare with equal intensity. You don't get to decide what goes on this team. Sasuke spat. And who do you think you are then, huh? No one died and made you team leader. Sakura deserves to be here just as much as you and I. Naruto retorted, getting in his face. Sasuke was basically shaking with anger. I'm not risking my shinobi career on a chance like that. Neither should you. You can't become Hokage if you're stuck as a genin forever. Naruto huffed. As if you care. I can't become a Hokage if I'm not willing to risk it all for a friend. Sasuke just snarled at him, her face taking on a scowl as she casted a heated look at Sakura, who failed to hold her gaze. Sasuke-kun thinks so poorly of me. Kakashi just watched the two bickers. So, deal? No deal? What is going on? Deal. Naruto shouted, tossing a bell at Kakashi's feet before glaring at Sasuke, who was still looking at him with an annoyed scowl. Kakashi couldn't tell exactly what the girl was thinking, but it was obvious she wasn't pleased. Sakura was unsuccessfully holding back her tears. A few of them slipped as she looked gratefully at Naruto before her eyes flashed to Sasuke. Their eyes met. All Sakura saw in them was anger and annoyance. Only Naruto and Kakashi saw the brief look of pity she flashed her before her face turned cold and emotionless. What about you, Sasuke? Are you willing to risk it? Why is Naruto willing to risk his dream for her? She barely even acknowledges him. Sasuke thought she looked at Naruto, who was glaring at her. It was obvious his eyes were practically yelling at her. Don't be a bastard. Whatever, if I get sent back to the Academy Uzumaki, Naruto, I swear I'll you. Sasuke said, tossing her bell at Kakashi's feet next to Naruto. Naruto casted her the biggest smile she had seen, which made her blush slightly before she rolled her eyes, crossing her arms, and gave him an annoyed huff. Sakura was looking at her as if she had just saved her life. Her relief was apparent across her whole body. Kakashi looked at the three. Are you three sure about this? Once I start the timer, there is no going back. Naruto nodded his head. You bet, Kakashi-sensei, we are gonna kick your butt again, believe it. Kakashi nodded, looking at Sakura. Well, I don't have much choice, and I can't let Sasuke-kun and Naruto-kun regret it. Her eyes held the most determined look he has seen on her yet. Kakashi looked at Sasuke, who was still looking annoyed, her arms crossed, a slight redness in her cheeks. And you, Sasuke? He noticed her briefly look at Naruto before rolling her eyes and glaring at him. It's either we defeat you, and I remain a genin, or I go back to the academy and Naruto. Hey. Kakashi nodded his head, picking up the bells and tying them back to his waist. Well, you guys better get ready because you all, he said, pausing to look at his watch. The three genin candidates squatted slightly each, thinking this time they wouldn't let Kakashi out of their sights. You all, pass. Each one of the genin who were poised to strike him at any moment looked at him with confusion. What? We passed? Is this a joke? Sakura asked. Yep. Not by much, but you all passed. Naruto and Sasuke showed enough talent alone to pass. Awesome. Naruto shouted, jumping up and down. But I don't understand, Sakura said. The point of the test was to get you three to work together. I tried to divide you three, that's why I only had 2 bells, and that is why I made you three think that one of you would get sent home if you didn't have a bell. So you lied to us. Sasuke scowled at him. Yes, we are shinobi. Lying is a part of our job. As shinobi, you three will need to get accustomed to it. And learn when you're being lied to. We will call it seeing underneath the beneath. Don't take everything you see at face value. And more importantly, don't trust everything you hear either, always verify it. Most importantly, if you three want to survive as shinobi, you will need to work as a team, he said, looking at each one of them in the eye. I am not sure about you, but I don't want to die. Neither should you. We are Team 7, our lives are in each other's hands. There's a saying amongst shinobi that, those who break the rules are scum, but I say those who abandon their precious friends are even worse than scum. Kakashi said, looking at his students. Naruto was looking at him super excited and as if he was some kind of action hero. Sakura had an impressed gaze of awe in her eyes. Sasuke was just staring at him face blank, but he could tell she was thinking about what he said. Now we have a long way to go still. But today marks the first time you three agree to risk something for the sake of each other. From now on, I'm telling you that it won't be your careers you're risking with each other but your very lives. Naruto, he said, looking at the blonde boy who shot up at his name, you did well today. You have a battle sense that is peculiar but effective, and your tactics are unorthodox, but that is good. You have endless amounts of chakra, it's scary, and your taijutsu is decent. Naruto had a smug smile on his face, turning to Sasuke. You heard that bastard, I'm awesome. Sasuke's eye twitched and she shot a ganoid look at Naruto, who stuck his tongue out at her. But your chakra control is terrible. You are too nearsighted in your thought process and you are completely unrefined. I hope you like reading because I am going to have you reading books every week, writing me reports, then we will practice what you learned through reading. Naruto's face showed one of horror. Sasuke chuckled. I'm not sure the idiot can even read. Hey, I can to read head. Sasuke. Kakashi started. It's undeniable that you performed the best today. You're clever, your taijutsu is near perfect, and you have a sizable chakra reserve as well. Your Sharingan is young but deadly and your flexibility seems core to your fighting style. Sasuke looked at Naruto with the same smug look he given her earlier, but you are more concerned with personal gain than this team, and you lack jutsu to back up your cleverness. We will be working closely together. I am sure I have a few things I can teach you. That will add to your skills. Not as smart as you think, you are bastard. Naruto said. Sasuke wanted to whack him across the head but settled with glaring a hole through his head. I should have let that kunai impale you in the throat. Sakura. Kakashi said, looking at his last student. You performed the worst today. Your chakra reserves are low. I don't even know if you're decent at taijutsu, but looking at you I'd assume not, and you only passed because your teammates carried you. You will be a detriment to this team if you don't shape up. Sakura looked at her feet. She knew she performed poorly today. What Sasuke said earlier was true, so she couldn't be mad at him. If she was in his shoes, she probably would have given the belt to Naruto as well. That being said, you came up with a plan on the spot and made it work. You got guts and determination and intellect, so I am sure you'll be fine. From now on, me and you have a lot of work to do. Well, mostly you. I expect you to wake up every day and do intense cardio training. I will also work on your taijutsu and get you up to snuff. You have small chakra reserves, but that means unlike Naruto, you should be able to control it well. I imagine you could be a great genjutsu specialist with your brains and some dedicated training. Sakura gave a soft smile to her sensei, her face changing from somber to one of hope. Well, Team 7, you have the rest of the day off. Congratulations, I will meet you all here tomorrow at 0900 for mission assignments. Oh, and Naruto, please buy some new clothes. Sakura, I want you to help Naruto find some more clothes, Kakashi said. Wait, why does Sakura have to go help Naruto find more clothes? Sasuke yelled. Her face held a scowl but her cheeks were slightly flushed. Kakashi didn't respond, just eyed her up and down repeatedly. Sasuke watched her sensei eyeing her up and down. Why is he just staring at me like that? She looked at her clothes. Nothing was wrong with her outfit. Yay, it was blue, but at least it wasn't bright and eye-catching as Naruto. Everyone liked her style. That's when it hit her, light bulbs flashed in her eyes. Naruto and Sakura watched Sasuke's face flash through several emotions, anger, then embarrassment, then disbelief before settling at anger again. I think we both know why, Sasuke, now don't we? Kakashi said, not hiding the chuckle in his voice. Naruto watched Sasuke's face turn red before he stomped out of the training area without so much as a goodbye. Whatever, like I care anyways. Sasuke said as she walked off. Naruto watched Sasuke storm off with an amused smile. Nice job, sensei, you pissed the bastard off so much he turned red. Naruto was bending over laughing. Sakura was staring at Sasuke's shadow. She'd never seen him look embarrassed before. She looked down at her clothes. Surely, She wasn't that poorly dressed. Sasuke thought her incapable of bettering Naruto attire. Well, since that's settled, see ya tomorrow, Kakashi said before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Naruto turned to Sakura, who was watching where Sasuke took off too. She had a worried look on her face. Hey Sakura-chan, don't worry about the bastard. I'm sure he is just jealous or something bastard-like. Naruto said, offering her a kind smile. Sakura turned to look at him. She offered a small smile that Naruto recognized as a fake. Having been doing it all his life, thanks Naruto, and thanks for believing in me. Without you I wouldn't be here, so I owe you one, she said, offering a genuine smile at her last sentence. Anytime Sakura, so do you know where to get good clothes? Sakura nodded her head. Follow me, I know just the store. Sasuke stomped her way towards her clan's compound. That faceless prick. Eyeing me like that, the way I dress is completely fine, it's not my fault that most people have the observation skill of a 2-year-old. I'm obviously a girl that thinks that I'd dress Naruto up in a weird outfit or something and people would confuse his gender. Goddamn prick. Picking Sakura over me, to spend time with Naruto, and dressing him, and Sasuke paused over her. Why was she so upset about that? It's not like she wants to help Naruto get dressed or anything. Sasuke blushed at the thought of dressing Naruto and certain things that could happen in a dressing room. Then she was angry because Sakura would be the one in the unholy scenario she just imagined. Whatever, as if I care. She needed to get home so she can train some more. That would get her mind off of things. Sakura and Naruto arrived at a popular shinobi clothing store. Naruto recognized it and stopped outside the store. Nervously looking around, Sakura of course noticed this. What's wrong, Naruto? Well, I was just wondering if you knew of a cheaper store. I don't have much money on me right now. Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head as he gave a nervous smile and laugh. Naruto, don't be ridiculous, this is the best store in the village. You're not going to get better prices for good gear than here. She said, but I'm telling you, I've been here before and this place is way too expensive for me. Sakura rolled her eyes, grabbing Naruto's arm and dragging him inside the store behind her. Well, now you have Sakura Haruno with you, and trust me, girls are great at shopping. I will find you a nice outfit that fits your budget, and if we go over I'll cover the rest. How's that sound? She said as they entered. I couldn't ask that of you, Sakura-chan. Well, you didn't ask, I offered, now let's go. She dragged him over to a section of hoodies and jackets. She figured it'd be best to start at the top down. She turned to look at Naruto. Blonde hair, so we should go with a darker base. Orange does look good on him as well as blue, so that will be our primary colors with black as a base. The more she stared at him, the more she realized that Naruto was actually kind hot. A blush raised to her cheeks at the thought, which caused Naruto more anxiety, not knowing what she was thinking. What is it, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked, looking over his shoulder fearfully. Thankfully the store manager hadn't seemed to notice them yet. Shaking herself out of her thoughts. Oh, nothing, so I'm thinking you should go and try on these. See which one fits you and which material you like. Go in the dressing room over there, then come find me when you're down. I'm going to look for some bottoms for you as well. She said, looking at his pants. Her eyes noticed that Naruto kunai pouch looked in rough shape too. And some more ninja tool pouches. Naruto nodded before taking the clothing items with him towards the dresser room. Sakura-chan. She heard a familiar voice call out to her. Looking over her shoulder, she saw Ino smiling and waving as the girl approached her. Hey Ino-chan, what you doing here? Sakura asked her friend, returning her smile. Well, I just wanted to do some celebratory shopping since me and my team passed our additional exam. I assume since you're not crying in my shoulders that you and your team passed as well. Ino said hopefully. Sakura nodded her head, telling the blonde that her assumption was correct. Yes, me, Sasuke-kun and Naruto-kun passed the exam. Ino noticed the honorific her friend used for the dead last but shrugged it off as a slip. Sakura, although admitting she found the attractive, still they weren't best or even close friends, nor did she think her best friend had a crush on Naruto. Probably just a slip of the tongue. Ino noticed now that Sakura was shopping in the boys section and her eyes lit up. Oh, someone has been a naughty girl. You have a boyfriend, Sakura-chan. Ino yelled excitedly. Sakura was confused. Huh? No, I don't have a boyfriend, Ino pig. Sakura said, annoyed, thinking her friend was teasing her or something. Which then made Ino confused. Then why are you looking at boys' clothes? Oh, well, Kakashi-sensei said that Naruto orange jumpsuit was an eyesore, so he sent me here to help Naruto get a change of clothes for missions. Ino chuckled at this. That makes sense. I am glad someone is finally doing something about that hideous outfit he wears. Sakura nodded in agreement. He is here now, just in the dressing rooms over there. I am looking for pants and an undershirt or something for him now. But there is no orange and it's such a hard color to blend, it just stands out too much. Ino thought for a moment, looking around at their options. Okay, I'll help you find some cloths for Naruto. Ino said determinedly. You sure, Ino? We could be here for a while. I am sure. It takes more than one person to fix the wardrobe disaster that is Uzumaki Naruto. Between the two of us, I'm sure we can find something. Quote. Thanks, Ino. The two looked at clothes, comparing ideas and trying to find things that fit Naruto. Naruto had no idea how intense shopping could be. He had tried on 12 different outfits and was working up a sweat trying on all these different clothing combinations that the two came up with. It was starting to make his head spin. Sighing, he exited the dressing room, praying that this would get the two girls' approval so he could go home already. He walked out into the store from the dressing room, looking at the floor, expecting to be sent back again to try on more clothes. Instead of being sent back, though, he was met with the sounds of the girls gasping. When he looked up, he was met with two red faces as Ino was staring at him, mouth slightly agape. Sakura was beet red, looking at anywhere but at him. Sighing, he figured that this must have meant that this was another terrible outfit. Maybe shinobi fashion just wasn't meant for him. All that matters was the utility and functionality and comfortability anyways. A few moments passed and the girl still didn't say anything. Ino just stared, eyeing him up and down. He watched her lick her lips swiftly as if her lips and mouth were dry. Sakura would just glance up at him, face turning red, before looking away. I guess this is another number? Naruto asked questionably. No. Both girls shouted in unison, embarrassing themselves in front of each other. Naruto sighed, starting to approach them to get the next outfit. Figures. He went to reach for an outfit in Ino's hand, but she moved it away. When he looked up into her eyes, her face turned so red so quickly he thought she would pass out. She turned around so her back was facing him. Ino, can you please hand me the next outfit? I don't want to be here all day. He said desperately. Who knows how much time has already passed? Felt like a whole day. No. Ino said, stuttering slightly, her back still to him. Naruto was confused and it showed on his face. I can't change out of this if I don't get it, Ino-chan. Good. Sakura said. He turned to her and she covered her mouth before turning her head away from him and looking at the floor again. She was redder than Ino was a few moments ago. What is going on with these two? You don't need to change, Naruto. That outfit, it looks really good on you. Ino said, her back still to him, but he could see even her ears were red. This time it was Naruto who blushed. He stepped back from the two girls, turning to find a mirror. He had on a black kimono top that was open in the middle, exposing his chest. Wrapped around his waist was a dark blue cloth-like fabric tied together with an orange and black rope belt. Ino said that some shinobi use the cloth of fabric to hide their weapon pouches so the enemy can't what gear and how much he was carrying. At least that is what she intended this outfit to be for him. He wore black leggings that were super comfortable and would keep his lower body warm. The fabric that wrapped around his waist could be used as pullover poncho to fight the cold if needed. It stretched down to past his knees but didn't affect his mobility. He ended it with black socks and black shinobi sandals. Naruto himself thought this was the best outfit so far and had come out wishing for the best, although he was pessimistic about it. Taking a good look at himself in the mirror, he liked what he saw. Think what Sasuke wore when Team 7 confronted him for the first time in Shippuden and just added the colors I did. So this is the outfit then? Great. Naruto said, excited to get out of the store. Alright, let's go pay for it. I think it's 400 ryo over budget, but I will still cover it. Sakura said, trying not to look at Naruto so she wouldn't blush again. Ino and Sakura led Naruto with 6 other pairs of the exact outfits so he'd have one for every day to the counter. Upon seeing the familiar customers, the store manager spoke to them with a smile. Hello, Sakura-chan, Ino-chan, I hope you found everything you were looking for today. Both girls turned simultaneously to look at Naruto. They were too busy ogling him to notice the scared and uncomfortable look on his face as he tried to hide from the shop manager. Turning around quickly, the girls merely nodded before nodding to the store owner. Sakura placed the money on the counter, doing the quick math in her head. She was sure that she placed the right amount on the table. We'd like to buy these 5 outfits and the one that's is currently on our friend, Sakura said with a smile. The shop owner had followed the girl's eyes to that thing. He glared at Naruto before looking at the price tags on the items, swiftly removing them, to both Ino and Sakura's suspicion. The shop owner counted the money before sighing and looking up at the girls. Not even casting Naruto a second glance. Naruto knew what was about to happen. He wanted to bolt out of there but couldn't bring his feet to listen to him. I am afraid you're 1600 ryo short, Sakura-chan. Sakura's face twisted in disgust and confusion, so did Ino's. Even if I was off by a couple of ryo, it'll be understandable since I did the math in my head. But there is no way we'd owe that much. That would mean we only paid half of what we owed, and that's not possible. No, that'd mean that it cost double than what is displayed on the price tag. Sakura spat. There are no price tags on these items. I think you are mistaken, Sakura-chan. Sakura glared at the shop owner. I can't believe he is trying to scam me. Don't joke around like that. We saw you take off the price tags. Ino spat at the shop owner. She was pissed too. Why was he trying to scam them and being super shady all of a sudden? I am afraid you're mistaken, Ino-chan. Ino huffed, turning to Naruto, dragging him next to her and grabbing the price tag on his shirt, showing it to the owner. No, you're mistaken. You're trying to scam us. I can't believe it. I and Sakura have been shopping here since we were kids. Why are you doing this? That thing doesn't deserve to wear my brand. The shop owner said, glaring at Naruto. Sakura's glare intensified as she quickly grabbed her money off the counter. Before she could retort, Ino beat her to it. That's not a thing. That is my classmate, my best friend's teammate, and a shinobi of Konoha. He has a name, Naruto Uzumaki. Now give us these items to us half off, or I'm going to my father and demanding he tell the Hokage about the scam of a business you're running. And I'll have my father extract all our shares in your business. Good luck running a company when you're bankrupt. She looked absolutely livid. Naruto had never seen such hate in Ino or Sakura eyes before. The shop owner took one look at the girl and knew her threat was no threat but a promise. If the Yamanka clan pulled their shares, it would be terrible for his company, not to mention he could be sentenced to a lengthy prison sentence for scamming. Fine, the shop owner said. Ino smirked triumphantly. Sakura placed half of the amount they were originally going to pay before giving Naruto the rest of the money, even her extra 400 ryo. The shop owner packed their things in bags, not even bothering to hand it to them. Which earned him another round of glares from the 2 kunoichis. Hurry out of here, the shop owner said, glaring at Naruto. Gladly. Sakura spat at the man before dragging Naruto out of the shop with their bags, leading Ino out, who flicked off the owner off before exiting. Once they were out of the shop, they started walking, not in any particular direction, just trying to get away from the shop. I can't believe he tried to scam us. Ino said, still pissed. I know, and I thought that shop was so reliable. Sakura